Violet Lim. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lunch Actually Group, and I'm also your host for today. I'm a CWG community member. So I'd like to firstly welcome all of you. I want to thank you for taking time out to participate in our lunchtime webinar today. So it's organized by SCCCI CWG, which also stands for Singapore Chinese Chamber of Commerce and Industry Career Women's Group. So today's webinar topic is Innovate or Evaporate with COVID-19, and how to successfully digitalize your brick-and-mortar business. So before we start, I would just like to brief you very quickly on some of the ground rules. So first and foremost, there will be a recording of the session. So if you would like a copy of this, we'll be sharing the QR code link at the end of this webinar session, and it would be great if you can just help us to follow and receive our latest updates as well. And out of all the functions that is in the webinar, for today we are only using one function, which is the Q&A function. So as you listen to our panelists speak, please feel free to type in your questions during any time during the webinar, and our speakers will actually answer them during the Q&A session. And in case you have any technical challenges, please stay on the line and we'll try to come back as soon as we can. Okay, so before we kickstart today's webinar, I would like to invite our SCCCI Council member as well as Vice Chairperson of the SCCCI CWG, Ms. Michelle Teo, to say a few words. Michelle is also the CEO and of Mewa International. So over to you, Michelle.
Hi everybody, good afternoon to all, and thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to attend today's lunchtime webinar. The Career Women's Group seeks to organize learning and networking events for our members. We seek to give practical support to all our members and give ideas to help them personally as well as professionally. Over the past couple of years, we have sought to organize women in food events as well as women in tech events. We also seek to help businesses internationalize by organizing country visits as well as networking sessions with women in other countries. This is the second webinar that the SCCCI Career Women's Group is organizing and is focused on transforming our businesses through digital means. And the 4 resources who we have invited today have truly succeeded in this digital way, including Violet. We hope that you will be able to give us your continuous support for our upcoming webinar events. Lastly, I would also like to encourage everyone in the business community to support each other. It is the power of this community that will propel us through this to better times. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for the opening remarks. Yes, and so today, as you know, we have 3 very distinguished panelists with us. And before we go into the Q&A, I would like to invite each of them to really share with us our journey of how they have digitalized their business successfully. So first off, we have Miss Annie Yap. She is the founder and Group Managing Director of AYP Asia Group. So Annie has been a prominent leader in the HR industry for more than 20 years. And she started off with executive recruitment, but over the years, she has really transformed her business. In fact, really using tech very heavily. So I'd like to pass the time to Annie.
Hello Violet, and hello everybody. Yeah. Okay. For AYP, we started, our transformation about 3.5 to 4 years ago. Basically, because I think really we got no choice. We started as a research and recruitment company, and it's really like it's a red ocean. It's really cutthroat, and the business is just like many other businesses. It's brick and mortar, and it's very much dependent on people. So when my consultant leave, I need to recruit another batch of new consultants and train all over again. I feel that this is really not the way to go, and of course the internet also opened up to a new bunch of opportunities. So that time we started to embark on our journey. First of all, we digitize our business, and then we digitalize our business. So how we digitize our business is that, we see, the opportunity in Southeast Asia, and we want to really provide HR services, payroll services across, all these 6-7 countries that we operate in. And at that point in time, every time, the customer send in the request, our consultant will just respond. I find that the process is just too labor intensive and it's not going to work. So what we did was that we bring, everything online, so that we can actually cooperate or collaborate in all this online, and the customer can have a seamless experience, whether they're dealing with my people in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines. We're providing the same customer experience. So that's our first step. And as we progress, we find that we were actually processing payroll using a third-party software. We find that that's not the way to go, because every time when we come to tender, when we present a quote, we find that we lose out to our competitor who has a technology. Because technology, in fact, the cost is high. So we embark on a journey, to really bring, a new product into the market. So we develop our own software, our own payroll software. So we started with Singapore, and then we branched into other countries. So initially, we don't have user for our own software. So, but we use it on our own. So our own people use our own software to process. So that was also a challenge, because the people are used to using a third-party software, and if you get them to use a new software, so there's a reluctance to change. So what we did was that at that point in time, we really, built on a culture, built on an innovative culture, so that everybody, they always look at new things, new way of doing things. Otherwise, my old batch of people would think that why the company change and change and change, because it's so difficult to change, somebody's mindset. So, and the other thing that is actually, quite core is really you have this 1%, there's this saying 1% vision, 99%, alignment. So it's constantly, align and align. So it doesn't take immediately to transform, but it takes baby steps to transform, and you need to constantly align, with your people, so that you can continue to scale and continue, to provide the standard service, and continue to improve on your product. So we always believe that these three things, to make it simple, and it must be fast, and it must be secure. So these are the three as we always advocate in the business, whether is it delivering our services or provide the product for our clients. Thank you, Violet.
Yeah, thank you so much, Annie, for that. So I think one of the things that you talk about, it's really about 1% vision and 99% alignment, and I believe this is probably one of the challenges that many people have faced as well, because the owner, the owner of the SME will have a very clear idea of where they want to drive this, but it's really not easy when the rest of the team, like you say, they are used to using a third-party software and things like that. So what were some of the ways that you have used to help your business propel forward and really getting the alignment from the rest of your team as well?
Okay, so one actually very key thing that we do was that we bring our country managers down to Singapore, for alignment meeting every month. Okay, so this one day a month, and we have been doing that for the last 3 years, and that is a day of problem solving, because at the end of the day, right, the country manager, will know best what is the best for that country. For example, in this particular lockdown, right? So our country manager actually, in fact, all the countries that we operate in, everybody is on lockdown situation until today. Even Philippines is on lockdown, although the country has opened, but the problem is that the public transport is not operating, so they cannot go to work also. So, but we let the country manager decide, when to open, or when to lock down, because at the end of the day, they will know, what is best for their country, for the team, for the clients there best. Yeah, so they come down every month, for alignment meeting, and the day is really about problem solving. So it's a day of brainstorming, problem solving, and then, they bring back, to the country, and they execute it, to their team. So that's what we do, for the alignment. And the other thing that works well is really like, every time we have a problem, right, we always begin with an end in mind. So we know, like, we work backwards and backwards and backwards, and today we know what to do.
You want to share, like, at that point, what was your end in mind? Because, I know when you first started the business, it was like 100% executive recruitment.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, just maybe about 18 months ago, you completely exited the initial business that you started with. Yeah. So, like, what did you have in mind, or how did you, like you say, you really have this vision and then you work backwards. Like, can you maybe share with us a bit in detail, like, exactly how that process is?
Okay, so at a point in time, we were running both or 2 or 3 businesses simultaneously, so one of which is the executive search business, and the other 2 or 3 are all like payroll related, businesses. So when we do the executive search business, it's like actually one-off, it's cyclical, and all this. So we find that, we, at the end of the thing, we want to be like the HR company that really impact, how people process their payroll, the lives, of individual, and how, companies can be more engaged when they use, our software. So we find that, in terms of recruitment, it doesn't align, with our end in mind. So 18 months ago, we find that if, let's say, we need to continue to have resources to do that, then it's going to dilute our attention, our focus. So we, in fact, cut that, and then we work with partners. So in any case where our clients want us to do the recruitment, we just work with our strategic partner to do that. And because of the focus in, the payroll business, the software, so in fact, that part really take off, and it is also like, it's better for our brand positioning. Yeah, otherwise, people will be thinking you're doing recruitment and what's there to do with payroll. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Annie, for your sharing. So I'll give you some time to chill and relax right now. I'll get back to you during the panel session. And for all our participants who's listening in right now, we would like to make this engaging as well. So please do feel free to ask your question in the Q&A box. We would love to take your questions. Yeah. Okay, so up next, we have our, what I would call thorn among the roses. So very happy to have with us today Mr. Patrick Chio, who is the CEO and co-founder of Adam Khoo Learning Technologies Group. I'm sure a lot of us are familiar, with his company. So Patrick co-founded and helped to establish Adam Khoo Learning Technologies Group in 2002, a training and education business headquartered in Singapore and have offices in Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, as well as franchise operations in Vietnam and Nepal as well. Welcome, Patrick.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Okay. So for us, it started probably about 6 to 7 years ago. I think we realized that media habits were changing, customer buying habits were also changing. There were a lot of manual tasks that needed to be digitized, and many processes that could be cut down as part of our digitization process. So we realized there was no way that we could stick to the old ways of doing business, and needed to keep up with the changing times. So back then, it was really about emphasizing on using technology to solve as much as possible of the day-to-day problems. All right. So we cleared that part. All right. So today, our business, everything is run on the cloud. All right. We don't even have physical servers in the office anymore. Right. Our accounting, all our database, everything's on the cloud. All right. Now, the biggest part of our business, which went through the digitization, is really our financial investing education. Today, we reach out to more than 150 countries, which last year made up 35% of our group revenue. And because of the COVID situation this year, where some parts of our business are down, but some parts are up, it's going to make up about 50% of our revenue. All right. So how it all started was this. My partner, Adam Khoo, was spending too much time traveling. All right, and I think his wife was actually complaining, say, hey, can you cut down on your traveling? So out of frustration, he said he decided to become a YouTuber, posting his investing videos, education videos online. He started in July 2016 and posted a lot of free videos for an entire year. all right, probably maybe 50 to 100 videos. And in July 2017, we launched a website called Piranha Profits to sell the programs online. And today, I think on his YouTube channel, he has about close to 500,000 subscribers. And I think there's really close to about 20 million views on the 300 free videos that he has posted on YouTube. All right. Now, so I think that was a huge breakthrough for us. And as a result, a lot of our other business units are also moving our business online, especially during this period. Now, the challenges that we face is actually a lot. So back then, we needed to get the people who are digital savvy. Now, the Gen X people, like myself, we are considered digital nomads, meaning that we transit from the analog world to the digital world. So we know that we really need the millennials. The millennials are what we call the digital natives, right? And they were born in the digital world. However, that does not mean that they know how to transform the brick and mortar business into a digital business. So I think in the end, we had a business head who is probably in between Gen X and millennial thinking and generation, took the lead to equip his digital marketing skills. And then he took a variety of courses in Singapore and the US. So he went to US a couple of times and then attended many training. As a result of that, he came back, teach other people, and that's how we started getting more of our people to be more digital savvy. I think in the end, we basically learned everything in the book. We applied them in our business and basically just made it better. We continuously review what we did and find ways on how we can actually make it better. So what I realized that is in the digital world, a 1% improvement on a few metrics can actually mean a lot in multiplying the final result in the end. And that's what we have been emphasizing. Every time we run a campaign, anything that we do on a digital, let's say a media campaign or certain campaigns that we run, all right, we always do a post-mortem of the campaign, the project, so that we know that what are the metrics we need to improve on it. And then time after time, you find it's better, all right? I think the media research also, actually, back then media research is a lot of numbers were questionable, but today in the digital world, a lot of the numbers help us to analyze better, and with data analytics, we can actually make our decisions in a more clear and focused manner, all right? So I think in the end, I realized that for business owners, I think there's this mindset that we all need to have, all right, that technology can be bought, but stuff needs to be sold. So I think it's very easy to invest in a lot of technology. A lot of people think that we need to invest in our technology, but we didn't take that way. We started with making sure that the stuff was sold first on the need to digitize, to go through the digitalization process. And all these efforts where we created MVP of our products and started applying the MVP concept in a lot of our business discussions, all right, firing bullets, then cannons. All these concepts is currently helping us in our digital transformation process that we have actually put in place in the last 3 years. Yeah, that's been our journey so far in this digitalization process.
Thank you, Patrick, for your sharing. So I think because some of our participants, they might not be familiar with digitalization yet. So maybe you want to share a bit more about MVP.
Okay.
What it stands for and what is it about?
So the process of the traditional process of developing a product is you develop the product until like almost 70, 80, 90% completion, and then you just throw it on the market and then start selling it and pushing. But the idea about MVP maybe is at the very, very initial stage, and you just push it out to the market and see what the market react to it. And by giving you that little feedback, you go back and make those changes again, throwing back to the market again, receiving more feedback, coming back again, and keep on redoing it. All right, I think this part of it is very important because a lot of us actually spend a lot of time developing, a lot of money, time, and effort in developing. You think that you want that perfect product before you launch it, but that is not true in the digital world. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for that. So we will get back to you in a short while. So once again, for all our participants, I know you have all been listening intently and maybe you are like taking down notes. But at the same time, please do send us questions. So we already have some of you who have already put in your question in the Q&A box. So some of you who might not be familiar with Zoom webinar, is just at the bottom, the menu bar. So you would see a Q&A box. So you can just put in your questions there. Thank you. And our third panelist for today, I'm very, very happy to have with us Ms. Goh Yiping, who is the partner of venture capital at Quest Ventures. So Quest Ventures is a leading venture fund for technology companies that have scalability and replicability in large internet communities. So before her role here, Yiping was also an entrepreneur, and she actually exited her business, and at one point she was helping with the digitalization process at Matahari. So Yiping, welcome, and please share with us your digitalization journey.
Thank you, Violet. Hi everyone. Good day to you. I just want to give a little bit of a background. I quite like how Patrick described the whole Gen X and Gen X millennial transition. I'm born 1982. It's where most Wikipedias don't really know to categorize that as millennial or Gen X. So, I'm born, I think, in an era where change is coming, but people are just getting confused and kind of waiting for some boats to sail and how to get on boats. I think maybe that's the description. So when I in university, well, very long ago, I participated in this program to groom actually tech entrepreneurs. So I went to the US and interned in a tech company that was back in 2003. And when I first came back to Singapore, we started on this journey called the technology entrepreneurship journey. And at that time, I think there's always that distinction between a startup and a business. I think generally it's similar, except that startup seems to have that association with using technology. So I was kind of graduated, born into this world where the moment I graduate, I use tech. And I started my first business in tech also when I was, 21 years old. Since then, I have 3 companies. The last one that I had in 2014 is All Deals Asia, and it is a Groupon aggregator. At the time, e-commerce is not prevalent. The only e-commerce we do is to buy air tickets and hotels, but that's about it. And the idea is to aggregate all these Groupon clones so that people can be more efficient in looking for good deals. 2014, Lipo Group in Indonesia, one of the largest top 10 conglomerates, they came and acquired us. And with that, I moved to Indonesia, lived there for 3 years, and helped to build up their e-commerce called Matahari Mall. And maybe I'll just talk a little bit about my Matahari Mall experience, then also my VC experience, which is what I'm doing now. And Matahari Mall, it's a huge conglomerate, right, that does products anywhere from cradle to grave. So the day that you're born, they have hospitals, they have schools in the middle, and then they even have crematorium type services and products. And they have a huge offline offline brick-and-mortar departmental store called Matahari. So it's like our BHGs, our Metro, if you will. And the most curious thing also for me is, wow, why would a group like that is already very successful want to push themselves to look into digital transformation? And the answer is that I do think they spotted a trend that while the profits and the revenues are still very strong in the brick and mortar, there is this whole new green field of digital, path that they are curious about. And they wanted to launch into this journey, also kind of using their current assets to strengthen that new digital journey. And it's not one without challenges. I think especially when Patrick mentioned that, actually Patrick and both Annie mentioned that they were quite, almost pushed by digital transformation. I think now there is this joke, right? Who's the best motivator for digital transformation? Is COVID, right? When you're being pushed with no choice, I think then you become a damn fast learner. But when you have a choice, you have way more things that you want to kind of juggle. And I think one of the biggest concern back then was, would online cannibalize offline? And cannibalization is always the toughest, because when you don't see that your offline profits are not quite impacted yet, and you want to make that tough decision early, then, there is that, I guess, fine line of managing what this digital transformation, what this success can look like. So the group that I work with, Lipo, they were actually, I think, very objective, very neutral. They actually hired a whole new team. So I was the founding member, part of the new team to set up e-commerce, and kind of aided by people who have worked inside the business in the traditional space for the last maybe decade. So the idea that you want to infuse the old and the new together, not in a team, but more of getting advice from decades of experience that is already there, but having a new team to set out on this objective of how this new business can be successful. And I think as a group, they are very successful. They invested in about, I think, 4 to 5 internal business units doing digital, and one of them became a unicorn. There are some failures, but one of them really became such a big unicorn that Grab had to acquire them. So I would say that maybe in this journey, I see lots of mess. I see lots of, I guess, cognitive dissonance. Some people just cannot deal with, the need for why, like, our business is doing fine. Why are we pursuing digital right now? Will this take away my job? So lots of dissonance. But in this mess, it has now been, I think, the 6th year or the 7th year that they are launching this. I see that they are now coming out stronger as a conglomerate, with now the digital angle too, and which could become the new pillar, right? And that kind of bring me to when I came back to Singapore. At that time, I think I have one acquisition under my belt. I had also been beaten many times in my other startups. I have a lot of experiences that I would like to bring to the table. So I joined the venture capital world to help fund and help the future startups. And in this journey, when we went out to fundraise, I'm quite surprised, or maybe not, shouldn't be so surprised, that a lot of our investors, some of them are family offices. They have made their money in traditional space. And some of them are in brick and mortar. Many of them are keen to be involved with, say, a venture fund like ours, because of the exposure, to see what startups are doing out there, to get ideas, to be connected to this so-called young and savvy people that is of maybe a different thinking, a different breed, where maybe it's a little bit like how Lipo brought us, mixing the old and the new, and coming up with something new entirely. And I would say that many times we see that the brick and mortar folks, even just my friends, nothing wrong, right? Running a good, a solid, good business. But many of them view digital adoption changes maybe as a one-time activity. If we look at, let's say, our local heroes like Carousel, or even further out at Alibaba and Amazon, the moment they announce that, hey, we will stagnate and maintain whatever we have, it's a one-time business, we will digitalize once and that's it, That's not true, right? Even till today, the giants are innovating constantly, because now the motivation is by maybe one Sunday, one person, one company can eat up your lunch. Is that this paranoia, I feel, becomes a motivation, and that now once you launch your digital path, you don't go back anymore. You're kind of addicted. Like what Patrick said, I think digital is quite fun in the sense that lots of things are now more trackable. You are now even more accountable. You spend $1 on marketing. What is what's the return? Is there nothing? Is that negative? Or what is it, right? And all this can be so trackable. So I do think that digitalization is not a one-time off mentality. It's really a long-term journey together. And there will be mistakes, there will be lots of mess. But it is kind of really hanging out with a new group, reading up on the latest trends, taking some risk and experimenting, and hopefully not too costly, but the costly one will make you learn the most.
Thank you so much, Yiping, on that. Definitely have taken a lot of great gems from your sharing. So in terms of really looking out for the trend, and also I think what I really love you say is that to realize that digital transformation is not just one-off activity, but it really needs to be a mindset as well. So with this, I would like to bring back all our panelists. Yeah, because we do have quite a number of questions that have come in. So that's awesome. Yeah, so okay, let's bring back our panelists. Welcome back, Annie. Welcome back, Patrick. Okay, so I think before that, right, one of the things that you all have highlighted, is definitely the people. I think, be it Annie, be it Patrick, be it Yiping, you all have talked about it's really so important to get the right people in the team, if you're looking at digitalization. So we have quite a number of questions from our audience here, so I will just go through them. So one of the questions is directed at Annie, but I think probably both Annie and Patrick can take this question as well, which is it must have been costly to digitize introducing your own software. How did you make the business case, and did it require you to make less profits in a certain year? What is your ROI today?
Okay, so for us, when we digitize our business, right, we for our own software, we only use for the HR portion, the payroll processing, portion. Whereas for the rest of the business process, right, we kind of use, for example, for file sharing, we use Google Drive, for file sharing, and then for of course accounting, we have our SAP, and then for sales we have Salesforce. So we use different tools for different purpose. For communication, we use Slack. Only for external communication, then we use email. We try to reduce the communication internally on emails, and then in terms of the investment wise, right, definitely, for us, we have to be very, very careful in terms of investment. So some of the challenges, of course, as we build on our MVP, or our different version, right? So in the beginning, we just take baby step, one step at a time. Even until today, right, there's still challenges to say that, oh, our software should have this feature, should have that feature, but our tech team is so limited. And their time, we need to prioritize which one, comes first, because Indonesia also got demand, Vietnam also, so different countries got different demands. So we just take one step at a time. We prioritize, what is the biggest impact. So I'm also very blessed to have my tech team, my head of engineering, who has been with me for 4 years now, and it's his first job. He really grew together with me. He grew the team together with me. So one of the challenges is really to recruit, tech people also. So in terms of ROI, I think, there are some years we just have to bleed, so that we can actually progress, towards this direction. But we take the approach of a hybrid approach. So ours is not 100% digitalization. That means we don't have any service business. So we do have our service business, you know, empowered by our own software. So we are running like a hybrid model. Yeah. So in terms of ROI, I do see that we are a lot more productive, you know, a lot more efficient using our own software. We have a lot of control over the process as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Annie. So Patrick, this question maybe you can help our participant with. So I think this participant is asking, what are some of the problems your company is facing right now or you anticipate might come up, and how do you plan to overcome them?
I think so for us, any face-to-face training, because technically 70% of my business last year, if you recall what I mentioned, is it will be actually face-to-face training, and we have large number events where we have events with 100 people, 200 people kind of events, and in the schools we have outdoor camps and all this. So the fact is that we foresee that we probably a lot of things for us can only start in phase 3, all right, and that means maybe even 6 months later. So a big chunk of this part of the business is going to see probably 0 revenue, all right. So I think what we are doing is that we are attempting to go back to the schools with our digital products, all right, attempting to sell them, all right. So I think in the end, you will know that your clients, whoever they are, actually some of them still have budgets they need to spend. There are certain things that still needs to be done, and they would need some digital products as a result of the current situation. So I think in this crisis, we are still looking out for opportunities, all right, and not having a kind of give up kind of attitude lah. Whatever that we cannot control, we cannot do, we will just put it aside. Whatever we feel we can do, and we just work on those things. Yeah. During this period, it's best to create less stress than to have less stress than to create more stress. Yeah, for your employees. Yeah.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. Yeah, so Yiping, there's a question for you here, which I think you were in the midst of answering this just now as well. So how did working in Indonesia's Matahari Group help you in your business in Singapore? Were there any cross-cultural differences, and has their digital transformation created much success?
Thanks, and I think the person who asked is Fiona. It's a very good question. I would think that actually, maybe people will talk about a major explosive big changes, but I would say that the thing that really mattered to me the most that I felt I learned was I began to become more patient. Really seeing from different point of views, and Indonesians are, I think, on the whole, Indonesia, there are 2 kinds of Indonesians, I think. The one who are already up there, the big bosses, who are more exacting. They want to just get things done, and they're very forward with that. And then you have all the execution people who tend to be, they want what they want, but most of the time they may not be so straightforward. Yet, I think also the nice thing about Indonesian culture is people like to have a positive environment. So that has its own pros and cons. In some sense, it is not like, I think in the Singaporean context, I think we're all like a bit more blunt. That's why we also have way more complainers out there in the Singapore society. But I feel like I've learned a word of wisdom and a goal from Indonesia, which is, really be patient, see from other people's point of view, and be more empathizing. And as I come back to Singapore, kind of bringing back what I've learned, I find myself now being able to, I feel, connect with more people, and being more willing to be a partner rather than a boss. So also, I think Indonesia is humbling experience. It's like, maybe you might be doing well in Singapore, but when you go to Indonesia, wealth and ways of doing things is at a different level too. So I think that is also a great learning point when there's always more you can learn, and there's always more you can contribute. Yeah, it made me a better person. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Yifing, for that. I think that's awesome. So this question is for all our panelists from Waiting. So she's asking, can I ask what the speakers are seeing in terms of retail sales or consumer sentiment in the markets you're in right now? What are the trends? You know, for example, is May better or worse than April? And what do you expect to see in the next 3 to 6 months? Maybe we start with Annie.
So for my business, I mean, I don't do directly retail, you know, but we deal with like HR, you know, so if let's say, you know, company are still keeping their people, you know, then that will mean that, you know, they will have like more spending power and all this. So we do see that probably there will be some retrenchments, you know, going on in the near future. But the thing is that, right, I think the retail scene may have a hybrid, you know, model. Retail malls or retail shops may have like, you know, lesser and lesser retail shops, but they will still need like, you know, a shop whereby they can go and feel, test or whatever, you know, experience how you hold a phone, how does it feel like and all this, but they will go move online to, you know, to order, to place their order or to buy. Yeah, so that will minimize kind of like human interactions. At least this is what I see in the near term.
Okay, thank you, Annie. What do you think, Patrick?
So I think just for us, a big chunk of our business is also B2C. I think a lot of us is for us is regulated. So unless the government gives the go ahead for anything that you can do face-to-face kind of training, if not, we can't do anything about it. So this is something that we cannot control. So I don't want to think too much, and I also don't ask my staff to think about it. I wait until the next announcement. But from the retail perspective, right? The retail perspective, the way I see it is that there's actually a lot of pent-up demand, and what we should do is to look at the other countries that have finished the so-called they've cleared their lockdown. People are allowed to go out. Look at the trends overseas, and then think about what's happening in Singapore. All right. What we're going to see is that in Singapore there'll be the industries that are related to travel, tourism, is going to be severely affected because tourists are not be coming here. So it means our hotels, all this will be affected. But the domestic market would still have a market. I can foresee once the facial spas are open, the food reflexology open, a lot of people will rush there, you know, book appointments and things like that. All right. The services will start to build again. All right. But one thing I will also see is that a lot of businesses will probably realize by now, right, that in the future, there is no way any company can exist as a brick and mortar business. In the future, every company is actually a technology company. You have to use some form of technology, like it or not, all right? So I think as a result of that, I think a lot of consumers now will have choices, all right? Like seriously, whatever my wife or my kids ask me to buy, I just take up the app, whether it's Lazada, Shopee, or Taobao, you know, I just buy from there, and then I just have to have that patience to wait for the next 1.5 weeks for the goods to arrive. But other than that, you know, there will be many people who still want to go to the shops to buy. So the domestic market will still be there, I feel. Yeah, I still have some faith in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. And Yifing?
Yes, I agree with Patrick. I think that there is a huge pent-up demand, and that businesses are going to still see huge demand going back. But the face of what a future business look like is really what is the cost of not being digital. Yeah, and now I think COVID has revealed that there is a huge cost to not being digital or just totally ignoring it. We see that definitely e-commerce is booming, entertainment, gaming, even actually beauty products are not really dropping much in sales because beauty turns out is quite essential. So we're seeing quite definitely a good growth in the e-commerce segment, but there is also in some sense caution, I would say. Like we see a lot of rise in new delivery type of companies, new kind of whatever grocery delivery to your house. Can those continue that kind of exponential growth post-COVID, or I wouldn't say post-COVID because I don't even know when, but maybe post-lockdown, right? Some people may have gotten used to the convenience, but some people might actually want to go back to the malls and start getting back to feeling normal again. So I do think that businesses that thrive as a result of COVID also need to be cautious and aware. How can they be resilient actually post this lockdown? How do they even prove themselves that they can also be a new normal type of company?
I think that's an excellent point. So it's thriving right now, but how to continue to make sure that it thrives. Yeah, thanks, Yiping, for that. So my final question for our panelists today is, so we have a lot of participants here who's listening in, and probably in their mind they're thinking like, okay, I love what all of you have shared. I think this makes sense. I really need to be doing it. I should have done it like maybe 5 years ago, like what you did. But it's never too late. And they really want to get started on this. So what are some suggestions, or what are some key action steps that they can take, right away after this call today? It's like, I know it's not easy to break them down into, like very quick action steps, but just want to hear from you, what is the mindset they need to have, or like what are some steps they can take, if they really think of wanting to start their digitalization process for their company. So maybe we start the other way. We'll start with Yiping this time.
There's a lot of resources out there. So I think, it can easily be subscribing more to Tech in Asia, E27, TechCrunch. To this day, sometimes people look at the Chinese media too, which is a little bit more relevant these days and a bit more forward sometimes than the US counterparts. So doing that, and then start coming out to hang out with the startups, or even be in the VC space, start getting involved. And you know what? Because of COVID, all these webinars are so accessible now, and most of them are free. So come listen to how the startups pitch, and get on their journey.
So Yiping, on that note, is there any particular webinar links that you can share right now? So for some of our participants who might really, like you say, like start hanging out with the startups.
I know E27 has a page, or Tech in Asia also have a page that has tech events that links all these webinars.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks, Yiping. Patrick?
So I think first of all, I would say there are two parts to it. So if you're a business owner in this, among the participants, the first thing you need to do is to think about your people. Probably do a nominal role, a name list of all your staff that you have, and think of all the skill sets, the digital skill set that you think your staff can fill in. And you take them one by one, all right? Just imagine different columns, one column for one skill set. And you do an assessment of all the people that you have and the available skill sets. And then you think about where you want to bring them to in that sense, all right? And provide them with the necessary courses. And likewise, for the participants here who are working employees, you're working in a company, all right, and you realize that as a result of this COVID-19, your bosses will also be looking out for people who are digital savvy, all right? And digital savvy does not mean that you are young, you are automatically digital savvy. You may not have that business mindset. So if you have that business mindset and you realize that all you need to do, right, is to acquire a certain skill set, like would you have the ability to run your campaign? Do you understand what is SEO and all the nitty-gritties behind all the jargons that people use in tech? So if you know that, good for you. But if you do not know, then I think it's time to really relook at learning and equipping yourself with the right skills. Yeah.
Yep. I love that. Thanks, Patrick. So I think very important. There's two parts to this. So one is the digital savviness, and the other part is the business mindset. So to just really see, which is the part that maybe you're a bit lacking on, and really fill in that gap. Yeah. Thank you. And Annie?
Okay, so for me, I think it's important to talk to your customer You know, so understand what are their priorities, understand what are the problems, you know, how you can, you know, what kind of solution you can bring, you know, to them, what kind of value you can add to them. Yeah, I think very important is you really need to understand your customer and also your market, so that you know what kind of like solution or value or how you can digitize your product, your business, you know, to meet the value of your customer.
Yeah, thank you, Annie. I think that's very important as well, because obviously it's not just we just want to digitalize for the sake of digitalizing. You know, everybody is talking about it, let's do it. It's not so much about that. We really need to know what is needed by our customer, what are their pain points, and how we can actually digitalize our product to solve those pain points. So thank you so much, guys. You know, like it has been extremely, I would say, illuminating session with all of you. I personally have learned so much as well. So just to recap, you know, we have heard so much from our panelists today. So one of the things that is very important, definitely, it's about alignment, you know. So I think both Annie, actually all our panelists today, Annie, Patrick, Yiping, talk about alignment, because, you know, the boss or the business leader can have that that idea or that the thought, you know, the vision, but without alignment with the rest of the team, it's not going to work. And another thing is really we need to be thinking about MVPs, you know, like, so I think one of our participants asked just now as well, what is MVP? So MVP stands for minimum viable product. So rather than, you know, in the brick and mortar world, it's very much about making everything up to 80 or even 90%. But when it comes to digital products, you know, like, you just need to make it minimally viable and then start testing from there. And the other thing that, you know, Patrick shared was that in the digital world, just making a 1% change can actually, you know, change a lot of things in the matrix. So I think this is also a mindset that we all have to adopt, moving from brick and mortar to digital. So sometimes, again, you know, we think we need to be pushing, you know, like 20-30% to see any difference, but when it comes to digital, it's different. You know, like, it's really moving 1% of each different matrix, and you can actually see a huge difference. And I think, you know, Yiping shared that right now during COVID, you know, like, COVID is the biggest changer, because when we are pushed, you know, we have no choice, everybody become a fast learner. But it's also about really checking out the different trends. And last but not least, I think Yiping also shared that digital transformation, you know, it's not just a one-off activity. We really need to be constantly looking at it, and it needs to be a mindset. So with that, you know, on behalf of the SCCCI CWG, I would like to thank Annie, Patrick, and Yiping for speaking at our webinar panel today. I would like to thank them for sharing their expertise on digitalizing brick and mortar businesses. I also like to thank, of course, Michelle and our committee for organizing the webinar. So if you have, you would like to contact with our speakers today, because there are some questions that came in at the end, and we didn't have time to answer your questions. So we would like to contact our speakers. You can always just, you know, like, do a print screen right now, take a photo right now, so you can see all their contact details are here. They are more than happy for you to reach out to them. And okay, so I'll just give you a few seconds to take a photo very quickly. And a survey link will also be appearing on your Zoom platform after the end of this webinar. I also like to provide a QR code here for your scanning. So we'll love to get your feedback for today's webinar. You know, please share with us by completing the survey form. And also sharing with you our QR code, as I mentioned just now, to have access to our SCCCI CWG Facebook page, as well as LinkedIn page. So I hope you have enjoyed today's webinar. We are going to be having more webinars going forward, be it in the tech, about tech, or be it about food. You know, like, we are actually running a series of different webinars as well. So the next webinar that's upcoming, which is going to be next week, same time, we'll be talking about digitalization simplified. So, you know, today we really talk about the mindset, you know, like, why we need to do it. You know, the next talk will be focusing on the digitalization and automation strategies for you to transform your business. So definitely stay tuned and register for it. We will be sending you the EDM shortly. So that's the end of today's webinar. Thank you so much for being with us today. And once again, I'd like to thank my panelists, Annie, Patrick, and Yiping, for taking your precious time out to join us. And till the next one, everybody, please stay safe and take care. Bye.